Welcome to the X Corner. I'm here adding that mutation to the Superhero Crew. I'll be covering the X comics for the week of December 5th, 2018. This week we have 3 comics: Merry X-Men Holiday Special number 1, Shatter Star number 3, and Uncanny XMen number 4. Spoilers, of course. We'll start with the Merry X-Men Holiday Special number 1. It's by lots of people. This one was a weird one to recap, since it's pretty much a bunch of Christmas one-page shots created by all different people. It follows the format that each page is a day leading up to Christmas. There is an overarching narrative of Jubilee and her son trapped in Murder Mall by Arcade, but that has very little to do with the Christmas, really. Some highlights are a return of Dr. Nemesis to ruin Beast's Christmas, a really nicely drawn Domino story by Anthony Piper, a reunion of Captain Britain and his newly returned to normal sister Psylocke, Gabby getting a secret Santa gift and trying to figure out who gave it to her, and a touching one where Hope laments not having her dad around for Christmas. There are some weird ones too, especially the Magneto one where Warsaw is bombed out like World War II, but in the present day, unless he travels through time, there's no indication of that. I think Cullen Bunn thinks Warsaw is and always has been a ghetto. This special was all over the place. I think there was enough good here to make the useless and bad fall to the wayside. I kinda wish there had been more focus, but this shotgun style is okay in a format like this. 7 out of 10. Then there's Shatter Star number 3, written by Tim Seeley, art by Geraldo Sandoval and Carlos Villa. Shatterstar is trying to save his tenants, but he has a choice. Save the ones in the gladiatorial arena, or the super dog who's about to be sold as meat. He chooses to save the dog, but the Grandmaster is offering the weakest of his tenants a choice too. He turns Tina, the one from our Earth, into a superhero, and she is sent off to fight. She's fighting well, but as her opponent Zeus says, having power and wielding are 2 different things. He then kills her in an epic page. Shatterstar saves the dog from the Merc, but he knows it was at the cost of one of his other tenants. This issue was solid, but not much really happened, just some great looking fights. Shatterstar has a new costume, which he thinks is a disguise, even though Grandmaster can see everything he does. This is what I thought this series would end up being, as Shatterstar kills his way through the bad guys to rescue his tenants. So far, not much depth. The flashbacks to his and Gringrave's gladiatorial days, interspersed, don't really add up to much either. This series had so much potential after the first issue, but now is just a little bland. I thought they found a way to make Shatterstar interesting, but so far I haven't seen that spark again. This will get a 6.5, which is pretty low for me, but I really tried to get it a 7, but kept balking at that high a grade. The first issue was so good though. Then we have Uncanny X-Men number 4, written by Ed Brisson, Matt Rosenberg, Kelly Thompson, art by Perry Perez. The X-Men are dead, killed by the Horsemen of the Anti-Apocalypse, or so we're led to believe. After the Horsemen leave, we see that Armor saved everyone in her shell, and Jean and Betsy use their powers to make the Horsemen think they died. The Horsemen go back to report to their boss that their job's done. Their boss is, of course, X-Man, who seems to think he's the new Messiah, and I don't mean that in a metaphorical way. He actually calls himself the Second Coming. He projects himself to every mind on the planet, and he says that in 7 days he'll bring peace on Earth. A very Christmassy message. His methods are a bit lacking, though. He sends his Horsemen out again. Back at the mansion, though, the X-Men are finding out about X-Man and his plans, and Legion lets them know that he's kidnapped Apocalypse, too. Jean knocks out Legion, which makes the young X-Men mad, since they think he's just trying to help. Jean talks down to them, and Armor refuses to go with the team on a mission, and stays with her team at the destroyed mansion. Storm's team goes off to stop fighting in some war-torn nation. Magneto took all their weapons and made a statue of X-Man, but now they're brawling instead. She gives them something to fear, her, to try and stop them fighting. Jean's team is confronting Blob and Omega Red as they start to destroy a polluting oil rig. Jean has to decide whether to fight the bad guys or save the workers, which isn't much of a choice, so they save who they can. Back at the mansion, the young X-Men are arguing whether to release Legion. Armor and Glob want to, and Rockslide and Pixie don't. But Enola wakes up in time to break the tie. Glob goes to recruit someone they'll need to help Legion save the world. He finds Modrex at a bar. Luckily, he's just drunk enough to be convinced. Once again, a solid issue of the story. I found Jean being condescending to the kids a bit off-putting, but it does show her holier-than-thou side. There's a lot of drama, which you all know I love. The X-Men stuff and his Horsemen are a little over the top and on the nose, saving the world from itself. It is interesting to get a new villain who isn't evil per se, but his methods are morally devoid. The means justify the ends is X-Men's new philosophy, I guess. I do hope the X-Kids aren't being played by Legion, because that would make Jean prove it right. And she was just so smarmy. She shouldn't win. I did enjoy the first page there. It was a tribute to the fall of the mutants, even if it was all fake. These X-Men, they keep doing this. I think the villains should just nuke the area from space just to make sure. It seems to me every time, oh, they weren't really dead. This was still a good issue, but an in-between one. The action seems to be added on just to give some fights. They literally go off to do something because they say all the other heroes on the planet are taxed. Then they go to two of the most insignificant events. A big brawl, which would have sorted itself out, and a few oil workers jumping into the sea instead of maybe following their training and actually evacuating like they were supposed to. All this focus on the young X-Men makes me think they'll actually get a book soon, which is great. I think this one is a 7.5. We'll get more next week though. So that's this week done. Next week we have more Uncanny as well as the finale of Mr. and Mrs. X. You'll note I didn't review the Exterminated issue. Marvel claims it doesn't have any spoilers for Extermination number 5, but I prefer to read my stories in order, so I'll wait to do that after that last Extermination issue in 2 weeks. Hopefully if it doesn't get delayed again. We'll see you next week though.